Matthew slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out an old olive green military leash, the same one he had carried every day since the mission that changed his life. He held the brass clip against the kennel door. The fierce Belgian Malinois let out a heartbreaking whine. It wasn't the growl of an aggressive dog. It was the cry of a soldier who had finally found his commander. Titan pressed his muzzle against the chain-link fence, desperately trying to reach Matthew's hand. The terrifying animal that had frightened everyone in the shelter disappeared in an instant. Standing in his place was a broken military dog who had survived unimaginable suffering, waiting for the only person he had ever trusted. "Open the gate," Matthew said firmly. Hannah hesitated. "Sir, if he attacks you." "He won't," Matthew replied without taking his eyes off Titan. "His name is Titan. He's a military working dog. His microchip is encrypted. Your scanner can't detect it. Call the naval base if you don't believe me, but open this gate." Dr. Miller studied Titan carefully before nodding. "He's no longer showing defensive aggression. Let him in." With trembling hands, Hannah unlocked the kennel. The moment the gate opened, everyone held their breath. Instead of charging forward, Titan slowly lowered himself to the ground and crawled toward Matthew. His powerful body shook with exhaustion as he dragged himself across the concrete floor. When he finally reached Matthew, he buried his scarred face against his handler's legs. Matthew dropped to his knees and wrapped both arms around his old partner. "I've got you, buddy," he whispered through tears. "I'm never leaving you again." He gently ran his hands over Titan's body, feeling every rib beneath his thin coat, every scar that told the story of 2 years spent alone. Titan rested his head against Matthew's shoulder and released a deep sigh, as though the burden he had carried for so long had finally disappeared. For the first time since the ambush, both soldiers were finally home. The shelter staff watched in stunned silence. Just minutes earlier, they had believed this dog was too dangerous to live. Now they were witnessing complete trust between a military handler and the partner who had once saved his life countless times. Soon afterward, Hannah contacted Naval Special Warfare Command. A military liaison arrived with specialized equipment capable of reading encrypted Department of Defense microchips. Within minutes, Matthew's story was confirmed. Titan had officially been listed as killed in action after the ambush in Afghanistan, but the truth was far more tragic. Separated from his handler during the firefight, Titan had survived the explosion and disappeared into the mountains. He was eventually captured by local militants who attempted to turn him into a guard dog. Every attempt failed. Titan obeyed no one except Matthew. Later, he was illegally sold through a network of private contractors and eventually smuggled back into the United States. During a federal investigation, the smugglers abandoned him near the California border. Injured, starving, and terrified, Titan survived alone on the streets until animal control finally picked him up. No one knew he was a decorated military veteran. To everyone else, he looked like a violent stray beyond saving. Matthew signed the release papers and clipped the faded military leash onto Titan's collar. "We've got a long road ahead," Dr. Miller said. "He's severely malnourished. He has untreated injuries, broken teeth, and deep psychological trauma." Matthew smiled gently. "So do I." He scratched Titan behind the ears. "We'll heal together." As Matthew and Titan walked through the shelter hallway, every employee stood silently to one side. The same dog they had feared only hours earlier now walked proudly beside his handler with perfect military discipline. Frank, the animal control officer who had nearly been attacked, stood respectfully at attention. Volunteers wiped tears from their eyes as they realized they had almost lost a true hero. Outside, warm California sunlight filled the parking lot. Matthew paused beside his truck and looked down at Titan. "Ready to go home, partner?" Titan lifted his head and gave a soft, satisfied huff. Matthew opened the passenger door, and without hesitation, Titan jumped inside before curling up on the familiar scent of his handler's old jacket. For the first time in 2 years, he could finally rest. As Matthew climbed into the driver's seat, he looked at the dog beside him, not as a weapon, not as a military asset, but as family. The truck slowly pulled away from the shelter, leaving Kennel 42 behind forever. The scars of war would never completely disappear. There would still be difficult nights, painful memories, doctor visits, and months of rehabilitation for both man and dog, but none of that mattered anymore. They were together again. Some bonds are stronger than time, stronger than distance, and even stronger than war itself. Matthew refused to believe that his partner was gone. And because he never gave up hope, Titan was given a second chance at life. Sometimes, the world's most dangerous-looking dogs are not monsters at all. They are heroes carrying invisible wounds, waiting for one familiar voice to remind them that they are finally safe. Behind the heavy steel doors of Kennel 42, a monster waited in the shadows. He had shattered 2 catch poles, terrified even the most seasoned shelter staff, and earned an irreversible place on tomorrow morning's euthanasia list. But this wasn't an abandoned stray. This was a forgotten warrior. And somewhere, his true handler was running out of time. For 12 years, Hannah Jenkins had watched thousands of dogs pass through the heavy glass doors of the San Diego County Animal Services facility on Sweetwater Road. As the shelter's director, she had rehabilitated fighting dogs, coaxed terrified strays out from beneath abandoned vehicles, and found loving homes for animals that other shelters had written off as hopeless. She had built her reputation on one simple belief: never give up on a dog. But the Belgian Malinois pacing inside Kennel 42 was testing that belief like never before. According to his intake paperwork, he was simply Stray 442. To everyone else, he was known by another name: the Monster. He had arrived 4 days earlier after 2 shaken animal control officers cornered him inside an abandoned warehouse near the Chula Vista shipyards. It had taken 3 tranquilizer darts just to get him safely into a transport crate. From the moment he awoke inside the isolation ward, he transformed the 10x10 concrete kennel into an impenetrable fortress. This wasn't the frantic panic Hannah usually saw in abused dogs. This aggression was different. It was disciplined. It was calculated. 75 pounds of tightly coiled muscle paced relentlessly across the concrete. His coat, once the rich color of burnt sand and charcoal, was now scarred by patches of missing fur and countless old wounds that crossed his body like battle scars. On Tuesday morning, an overly confident volunteer named Trevor approached the kennel carrying a handful of high-value treats. The dog didn't bark. He didn't cower. He froze. His body lowered toward the ground, his amber eyes locked onto Trevor's hand with terrifying precision. Then he exploded forward. He slammed into the chain-link fence with the force of a guided missile. The impact shook the entire row of kennels. Trevor stumbled backward, dropping the treats as his face drained of color. The dog didn't continue attacking. He landed silently on all 4 paws, never taking his eyes off the young volunteer. He simply waited, ready for the next threat. He's not acting out of blind fear. Dr. Gregory Miller, the shelter's lead veterinary behaviorist, said quietly as he and Hannah stood safely behind the yellow safety line outside Kennel 42. Look at his posture. Look at his eyes. He's holding a perimeter. Hannah sighed, exhaustion evident in her voice. Can we safely sedate him for a proper examination? If I can scan him for a microchip one more time, maybe we'll find out where he came from. Dogs like this don't simply appear out of nowhere. He has to belong to someone. Dr. Miller slowly shook his head. Frank tried using a catch pole yesterday while you were in meetings. The dog didn't attack the pole. He waited. He let it clear the gate, dodged the loop with unbelievable speed, grabbed the aluminum shaft in his jaws, and nearly dislocated Frank's shoulder by pulling it through the bars. He bit straight through reinforced aluminum. Dr. Miller looked back toward the kennel. He's completely unmanageable. Hannah, if that gate opens, someone is going to end up in the hospital. He paused. Or the morgue. Hannah rubbed her temples as another stress headache began forming. What about an identification tattoo? Military dogs sometimes have ear tattoos. Dr. Miller nodded slightly. I checked his left ear through binoculars while he was resting. There's a massive keloid scar. It looks like shrapnel, or barbed wire. If there was ever a Lackland Air Force Base tattoo or any identifying mark, it's gone. He's a ghost. A highly dangerous, weaponized ghost. Silence settled over the hallway. Only the deep, guttural growl drifting from the darkness of Kennel 42 disturbed the stillness. It wasn't merely a sound. It was something you felt vibrating inside your chest. Shelter policy was clear. Aggressive, unidentified strays were held for 72 hours while owners were given an opportunity to claim them. After that, any animal deemed an unacceptable danger to public safety was scheduled for humane euthanasia. The shelter simply couldn't accept the liability. Nor did it have the space. Stray 442 had already been granted a one-day extension because Hannah couldn't bring herself to euthanize a dog who clearly possessed extraordinary intelligence. But every option had now disappeared. Every rescue organization she contacted, including specialized working dog sanctuaries, had watched Dr. Miller's behavioral assessment videos and declined. Feral. Beyond rehabilitation. Too dangerous. Too much liability. Dr. Miller rested a sympathetic hand on Hannah's shoulder. "Tomorrow morning," he said gently, "I'll make it as peaceful as possible. We'll use a pole syringe so no one gets hurt. But we can't keep him here. It's not fair to the staff. And honestly, it's not fair to him." He glanced toward the pacing dog. "Look at him. He's trapped inside a war zone that only he can see." Hannah looked back into the kennel. The Malinois continued pacing in a relentless figure-8 pattern. Every step carried the discipline of a soldier still guarding his assigned post. She hated the defeat she heard in her own voice. But she knew Dr. Miller was right. "Draw up the paperwork," she whispered. "Schedule it for 8 o'clock tomorrow morning." Inside the kennel, the dog continued his endless patrol. His paws were raw against the concrete. Old wounds throbbed beneath his scarred skin. He didn't understand the smell of bleach. He didn't understand the frightened barking echoing through the shelter. He didn't understand the strangers wearing soft clothes who kept trying to reach him with metal poles. His world was supposed to be different. The thunder of helicopter rotors. The smell of cordite. And the reassuring weight of his commander's hand resting against his shoulder. He had been trained to defend the perimeter until his handler returned. So he would defend this concrete prison until his final breath. Because a warrior never abandons his post. Even after the world has abandoned him.
If this tale moved you, if you felt the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more thrilling, emotional, and inspiring stories your way. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe dogs have an extraordinary sixth sense? Share your thoughts and personal stories with us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.